Welcome back to the Hardscape Huddle. I'm your host, Kyle Staffa, and today we have Kevin Moedt. And Kevin represents Townsquare Ignite, which is a marketing firm I had found a few years back. And I've had the opportunity to work with Kevin in the past, and we've had pretty good success with it at Staffa Stone. Kevin, why I asked you to come here today, we got a lot of feedback from contractors, not just landscape contractors, hardscape contractors, mason contractors, home builders, and the consensus was there's a void in the marketplace for education. So I saw this as the opportunity to take our supply business and take it to the next level, not just in supply, but educate guys that have been in the industry for 30 years and guys that are just starting out. With today's college prices, you went to college, you went to a local college that cost an arm and a leg. Yeah. You got a great education, but you're going to pay that debt back until you're, 45, 50 years old. So a lot of kids are opting to go to trade school. The trade schools may not teach them how to run a business. However, we're hoping that this education brings it along a little better. So I asked you here today because one of the topics that we hear from contractors is, okay, so I've got this business now. Okay, I've got, 10 mowers, 2 trucks, 2 trailers, but how do I get it to the next level? And we found ourselves in a similar situation.
You did, yeah. 4 years or so.
Yeah. In the same situation, like, okay, I got this supply business. Now what are we going to do? And that's when I had reached out to you.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into the marketing business? Why Townsquare? And start there, if you don't mind.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, first off, I'm happy to be here. Excited to be working with you. And so really, I started out on the content side. I wanted to do events, marketing, those kind of elements. I kind of fell into that role. But what's funny is I actually snuck into a Seaside Heights Beach concert, and the guys in the back were actually the sales team for a local radio station, and they hired me on the spot.
Because you snuck in.
They started me in promotions, and
okay.
I kind of worked my way up. But that's actually, for those who don't know, Kyle was actually my first sales meeting ever, and it was pretty funny, and made sure we had
That's
some fun. That's
probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8.
Yeah, these gray hairs are now coming in slowly. Yeah, about 8 years ago now. Wow. And it was interesting because I never thought I'd be a salesman, right? And we all look back and we're like, we're all salespeople at the end of the day. But it led into a really incredible career working here locally. Then I worked for Nickelodeon digital ad sales for a long time, MTV special events. And then came and worked for Townsquare Ignite, which is a direct digital agency, which I loved your intro at the same time because 99% of my job is education first.
Okay.
Because we hit that all the time. You could run whatever marketing strategy or campaign or throw something at and see what happens. But if you're not educated or understand what's going on, you're just hoping the money works and hoping that there's a term called ROAS, it's return on ad spend. That's actually there.
Okay. So if I have a blank stare on my face, it's because you've already lost me. You and I'm fortunate enough to be a little bit educated on the marketing side, especially, your business. I'm considerably older than you. So the social media marketing, SEO, SEM, that's all new, right? So we're going to dive into that a little bit during this conversation.
Which I am excited for that because really I started in traditional media. That's what I started with. So radio, broadcast TV, those kind of elements, and grew into digital and actually learning digital from a marketing standpoint. So
even in your 8 or 10 years in this business, you've seen it change more digital rather than...
even last year, right? There's a new app and a new tool coming out every other day that's going to create something different 3 months, 6 months from now. So it's always staying at the top of what's going on.
Okay. All right. So it's a fast moving.
Yes.
So one of the things I know we hear at the store we hear is, I've been doing it for 30 years. Okay. Why do I need to have, social media or SEM or SEO marketing? And I'm basically asking you that same question because I know there's viewers that are saying, well, I have a business, and they may, and it could be successful, but this might take them over the top.
And that's something that I get a lot, right? Like, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. We're word of mouth. That's great.
Yep.
And I'm happy for them, right? You want to be a successful business. I mean, look at McDonald's, look at Amazon, look at Dunkin' Donuts, all these major brands. They're still advertising.
Right.
Because the idea is, yeah, they might have a different budget level, but they're being very strategic about where their dollar is going, even if it's at a larger level. So when I look at that individual that has been in business for 30 years, you don't want to get lost in the minutia. You don't know how many times I go on social and I see a Facebook page and the last post was 2020 and they kind of just forgot about it. And if I'm a consumer, I have to put that hat on every time I walk in a room. If I don't see any updated content or I don't see any elements, and look, I'm turning 30, it's going to be that time frame of my generation is buying houses. We're getting our first place. We're getting married, all that kind of stuff. We're the next generation of people coming in, and you're future consumers. So while yes, for 30 plus years, you might have been in business and growing successfully, but what is that next step? I don't want to quote anyone, but there was something like Apple. It's like if you're never changing, you're not moving forward.
Not progressing.
Mm-hmm. And that's great if you want to end your business with you, but you want to be able to develop overall and grow that strategy with the new technology at the end of the day.
Right. So you're going to teach us about that today.
Yeah, I still like to call it the creepy stalker ads because that seems to get people excited and understand a little better that we're not listening to your phone. The only place I can't say this is at a bar. Is the whole idea of like, well, what do you do for a living, Kevin? Well, I sell the creepy stalker ads.
Right.
Really, at the end of the day, we sell the data elements of a campaign using those direct data partners to find audience.
Okay.
That's really what it is. It's finding audience.
Okay. And then how do you, well, I guess you're going to talk about this, is how do you hold on to that audience? So for us at Staff of Stone, we have a captive audience.
Yeah.
Essentially. Okay. We have a homeowner coming in or a contractor that's sending a homeowner in. But now that you're turning 30, you bought your first home, maybe you're married, maybe you're single. How do I gain your business? You never heard of Staff of Stone. You don't even know what a paver is.
No.
Okay. You let alone know who to hire to install it, or the chimney's falling off. So you're going to talk about that today.
There's only
right?
so many times you can call dad for something. And as a homeowner myself for 4 years, he's helped out a lot.
Right.
But as much as I love my dad, he can't do everything at the end of the day. And you want to make sure that you're top of mind. The top of mind awareness comes in.
So now we also have an audience that maybe a smaller company or just starting out. So budget-wise, how does this fit in to somebody's budget, or how much should they budget? How much should they budget to allow for SEM?
Yeah, so really we break it down keyword by keyword as well. I guess the best way to say it is you don't want to just put marketing dollars out there, like I said before.
Yep.
You want to be able to develop a strategy that's successful. I know people are going to say, well, he just sounds like another salesman walking in that's walking around the number. We look at it two different ways. We look at it as what the market is telling us and what each keyword costs, especially with a search campaign. So like, you don't want to just use the word stone and get 1 million people searching for the Rolling Stones, and then you're wasting a bunch of your budget. Not perfect science how that works, but I would say on a budget scale, if you use about 10% or less of your annual income, gross income, I would say net income probably would be better. Net income. That's a good number to really focus in on as a starting point.
Okay.
And then be able to develop from there.
Okay. So then I guess the next question is, if I'm giving you 10% of my net income, what should I expect out of it?
And that's the thing. With digital marketing, a lot of people come in now with impressions and clicks, and they'll walk into your store the happiest person in the world, right? We got you 1 million impressions. Right. That's awesome.
That doesn't put money in my pocket.
No one walked in the door, but 1 million impressions.
Right.
And you kind of sit there and you're like, I've heard it 1 million times, and it's sad, but that's still how some of the strategies work. But the problem is, if you don't build out a strategy where you can actually track conversions. I can track Jill Smith came into Staffa Stone, and you can match that back to your books that Jill Smith purchased X, Y, and Z. There's your return on ad spend. So when you're looking at something like that, the average could be 3 to 5 to 10 times return on ad spend. We have to be realistic with everything as well. Seasons make a big difference.
Weather.
So
for us, weather, big difference.
Weather is a huge difference. And now I think we've talked about this before, the weather triggered marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can actually do an ad specifically when it's raining out versus an ad when it's sunny out.
Right.
And those kind of elements.
Right.
But when we go back to really what the return on ad spend is, we can see anywhere from 3 to 10%, if not higher, as long as you are consistent with it. Don't just run it for a month and hope it works. Like
mm-hmm.
I've seen so many times a business owner come in and, well, I have a $75,000 budget for June. I know that's my busiest season. Okay, but can we take that $75,000 and break it out over 3 months so there's learning processes? And digital at the end of the day, whether it's Google, Facebook, Meta, or any of the data platforms, is not magic. It's not going to happen tomorrow. So you and I have worked together for 8 years. It's been about growth and development and learning how your audience is speaking to you and how you can find them in different ways as well.
So if I understand you correctly, it's a ramp up, it's a peak season, and then for us it would be fall. We'll slow it back down.
And it should be fluid like that because I always look to the HVAC contractors, right? Every month is going to be very fluid and different. Most of our HVAC contractors that we work with, they care about trucks on the road.
Right.
And I'm sure it's very similar in your industry too, right? If they're not out on the road and they're just sitting, you're not making money.
If they're not turning, they're not earning.
Exactly. So when I look at something like that, perfect example was, and again, in Jersey here, we never know what the weather's going to look like, right? So if I localize it, Jersey, February was very warm. January was freezing. The budget for heaters in HVAC space, January was ridiculously high. February was cut really low because there was no one searching for it at the time.
Oh, so you're talking about AdWords spends.
Yes.
So when I brought up the budget of what I should expect, so you're saying, if I understand this correctly,
yeah,
that January I would have spent $10 for the word heater, where in January is the better, cooler month.
January was a cooler month. Yeah.
So January was the cooler month. I might spend $10, but in February when it was warmer here in New Jersey,
yep,
that maybe heater only cost me $6-7.
Yeah. At the end of the day, and it's going to be fluid based on.
So that's the fluctuation you were saying. Okay.
Yes.
I understand you.
And then even if you break it down to a keyword level, that's going to determine the larger budget as well. So if we're looking at a goal for a year and we're looking at that 10% of the net sales, mm-hmm, or net, from last year. So now I'm getting my words tongue-tied. The net from this year and how we want to do it. Where you want to be this year as well is a factor. I mean, if you want to double that, there's going to have to be some more spend in there as well.
Not double.
Not double.
Right.
That'd be nice. But at the end of the day, you don't have to spend double to make double. It's really about working with your marketing team or marketing person in-house. Because we're great because we work as a direct vendor. So there is no third parties involved on our side.
Gotcha.
But if you're working directly with a marketing manager in your company, you had the funds to hire someone. and they're running your search for you. Really focus in on the keyword development. So it's not just the impressions on the keyword. That's where a lot of people make a mistake, especially when, and we talked about, we talked about the guy who's coming in and starting his own company from scratch, from a trade school, whatever it may be. He might have hired his sister. He might have hired someone to come on and do his AdWords. Even that guy who's been around for 30 years, his niece showed him how to do a TikTok dance. So now she's running his search for him.
Right.
We hear it all the time. That's okay as long as you take a look specifically at, okay, it's not just the impressions. What are these keywords doing for me in the long run? So it's not just eyeballs. It's click-throughs and what the actual conversion was from that keyword.
And you can track all of that, correct?
You want to take a look?
Absolutely. Let's take a look and see what you got.
Awesome. So I just got to load it in. Beautiful. All right. So we'll talk specifically about search for a minute. So if I pull this up, here's a client of mine. Perfect. So here's a client of mine that's an HVAC contractor. He has probably five or so trucks local to Jersey here. When you look at something like this, first is going to be the different types of campaigns you can run. You have the different heating and cooling services. You have plumbing services. Branded is actually going to be the name of your business because that's valuable. When that person walks in and talks radio, talks streaming audio, which this is going to be on, talks anything around an awareness campaign, that's going to be your name getting out there. Mm-hmm. That's why, and I mentioned McDonald's before, McDonald's is praying that you're hearing the McDonald's ad and you're going to see the golden arches within the next few minutes as you're driving down the street and stop by.
Right.
That's why they're doing still that branding element. And then finally is conquesting. These are my favorite one, and I know how competitive you guys are, so I always love this part. Conquesting is competitors. So for an HVAC guy locally, he's going to use the terms, I don't want to use any names, but HVAC guy X, HVAC guy Y. And because they're getting business and they're branding themselves, people are going to Google them.
So since, we're in the stone business, so if I, if I Google my competitor and if I do my keywords right, my name pops up instead of company B.
Yes, it doesn't happen every time. This is the part where I have a lot of my clients kind of going on Google and keep pressing. I hope it works. It's not every time. You're always everything. And this actually leads to a great point about search. Ford, the word Ford used to be the #1 keyword on Google.
Wow.
And that's because Ford, Chevy, Honda, Toyota, all of them were using the term Ford. Ford was using it for branded. But what was funny is they were outbidding themselves. Every month they had to spend a little bit more on their keyword because then Toyota, the second Toyota comes up, Ford comes up first, etc. Ford actually stopped buying their name at some point.
Because Toyota did it, Chevy did it, right?
Exactly.
It makes sense.
So it brought it down. And the reason I bring up that story is because that's actually something that led to people, and a question that comes up a lot is, well, can't I just click on my competitor's name and just click on it a bunch of times and cost them $1 million? Doesn't work that way anymore. Google has different elements now that can prevent those kind of strategies and manipulations, so to speak.
Right. So Google's saying, hey, it's the same URL,
same URL
computer,
over and over.
Same location.
What's going on here? And they've become so smart with their AI. And I really didn't want to say the word AI today, but I just went to a small business conference in Miami, and every other booth at the conference was AI in some regard. And I talked to a woman from Philadelphia down there. It was kind of funny. She went, yeah, I just added AI to the end of my company name, and I almost doubled my business. Just because she literally starts using AI now, and she does, if I remember correctly, she does video editing.
Okay.
And
interesting.
Whatever she was, phillyediting.ai.
Yeah.
And that's her new company name, and her everything sparked. So
let me ask you about what we have here.
Yeah.
You were talking about, putting in your competitors. So basically that's like the old geofencing was, right?
Similar, yeah. I could put a fence around their location. Now it's putting a fence around who's looking for them.
Okay.
The way you look at this, impressions, these people, those 4,388, this is a 1 month span, by the way. I usually do about 30 days here. About 4,000 people typed in one of the keywords around heating and cooling within a radius of, this is in Red Bank.
So a smaller town.
We did about a 5-10 mile radius, okay. Nothing too crazy. So about 4,000 people within that month typed in one of the branded keywords around heating and cooling. I need a heater. You'd be surprised how many people spell things wrong. I won't digress on all that, but you can use those keywords too. Out of those 4,000, 282 clicked to this HVAC site.
Wow.
That's a click-through rate. So a CTR, if someone ever tells you about a CTR, that's a click-through rate. End of the day, it's the division between the clicks and the impressions. We can do math on that side.
Yep.
All of that is usually what a marketing company will show you. And that's nice. And again, cool to know that about 500 people clicked to my site.
So if I'm sitting home watching this podcast, I say, okay, 500 people were on my site. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But
I'm still sitting home. Exactly. I'm not working. So
where's that next step?
Right.
And it's right there with conversions. So any marketing company that you work with, they should have conversions set up on your campaign. That's simple pixels, Google Tag Managers, Google Container. If any of this sounds familiar, your marketing company is doing something right because they're tracking what's happening. And down here is what's happening. So with this specific client, we had about 5 conversions set up. Phone calls. These two are pretty similar. So phone call clicks is different than phone calls. Phone call clicks is more on a mobile device.
Understood.
Phone calls is actually coming into the office, like hearing it from the actual website. By the way, the best part about that is there's actually a tool called Call Rail. You can actually listen to your front desk person, your secretary, your office manager, your sales team talking to the people on the phone.
Right. So it's just record.
It simply records the calls that come in. Then there's actually booking startings. So someone booked a service appointment. Well, 19 people booked a service appointment with this client.
And that's out of the 67 conversions.
Yeah. Well, out of the 107 total.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So out of all of these 4, this is broken out down here. This is just one slide. I can break it out even more to what zip codes they came from. I didn't want to show too much today, but what zip codes they came from, what keywords they came from. Another tool available to us, not only just search, there's something actually now called social lead generation. Same concept applies. This is a form fill directly on Facebook, Instagram, Story, etc. And they had 3 different creatives. This is more especially with contractors and hardscaping, especially landscaping, if you have really great photos of your work or from your co-op teams and all that different stuff, if you have great images and video and all those elements, this is a great way to get leads directly into your CRM system. So you can start retargeting them as well. So if you see each one of these, there's impressions, link clicks, but the only thing I care about at the end of the day are who those 7 leads were, how much they spent with you, how you got them in, those kind of elements.
Right. And like you said, you're capturing the name or the address, correct? So I should be able to look back through my, sales calls and say, hey, I went to, Millbrook Road in Brick and I, serviced their air conditioner before the season started. So that's a direct link, or maybe I changed their air filter.
Yep.
Okay. So that was the direct link.
Yes. And that's what should be there. At the end of the day, with all marketing strategy, what is my conversion? And the reason I bring that up all the time is...
Let me just cut you off for 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'll jump that back up.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't work the front counter of Staff of Stone anymore, so to speak. I mean, I'm there to help and assist our guys where needed, answer any pertinent information or the contractor's questions and what have you. But I'm more back office now. And I would not, A, know how to do this, B, have the time to do this, or the patience. So it's probably safe to say companies, that are working in their business rather than on their business needs to hire somebody for this. Safe to say? And be effective.
Yes.
Right? Anybody can, like you said earlier, throw money at Google or what have you and let it sit there.
Anyone can do these tools. They can do social. They can do search. See what happens, right? Develop it. But when it actually comes to like optimizing it and showing that I'm going to know that X HVAC guy is getting the most out of those 6 that we're conquesting, 4 of them came from X HVAC guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Well, now let's look at our other creative assets and maybe play. I do this with Pizza Hut. I know it's not a similar
right.
Category, but we do images about Domino's. It's like pizza is not a game. That's unique. Domino's is one of those elements. So those kind of creative assets can play into any category of business, including any in-home services type category.
Okay. So what other slides do you have that may pertain to targeting? Okay. So now, we live in New Jersey, but I don't cover all of New Jersey. Yep. Or, the gentleman down in Florida who just moved from New Jersey. Now he's a transplant. He's West Coast, wants to get back into the lawn maintenance business.
No one ever does that. Come on. Moves from Jersey to Florida?
Yeah. Only in the wintertime.
Yeah, exactly.
So now he's home and, he wants to get involved in this. But he doesn't know... He doesn't cover all of Florida. He doesn't cover Tampa. How creative can you get with the targeting of it? We mentioned it a little bit before, but how much can we put into it?
Yeah, and this also plays a little bit into what you were talking about before, about you're now back office. How do you put someone really in charge of seeing how this works? And there is a way to do that. So once you take Google and Facebook or social out of the equation, there's another element of a campaign that's available that we can actually use to match back names, home addresses, and actual sales as well. We call it our one-to-one campaign.
Okay.
So we start out zip codes, all those different elements about a target audience, credit score, household income, if they're a homeowner or not. And we can break that down to a zip code radius. With those zip codes, I can pull an data set of emails available to us. We send those emails out to 100,000, 500,000 individuals who have raised their hand. This is actually survey data. Survey and first party data. So these people have self-identified that they are Spanish speaker, they own a
700 credit rating.
700 credit rating. Certain job titles as well. We're working with a campaign down in Miami right now targeting GCs and general contractors. I'm sure everyone listening knows that, but acronyms are always big in marketing. GCs, architects, real estate developers, and they are actually a parking system. So like those like elevator parking, puzzle parking systems. They're using something like this to target the job titles, because at the end of the day, you mentioned before, if an architect is sending someone into you, that's gold, right? Because you already know what project's happening.
Right.
We run that report, we get that number. The second we send that out, when the email is opened, we have the first, last name, and home address available to us. With that, and this is what you were talking about before, we can use other data sets like this. And I had New Jersey up, but... So what you're looking at right here, and as the bubbles start coming up, I'll kind of go down to the shore. Here's 3.5 million parcels, which is a U.S. address, available to target. In there, and this is where the creepy stalker ad stuff comes in, 289,000 desktops, 2 million smart TVs, 5 million mobile devices. And why that's valuable is this is what's called addressable geofencing. We can put a fake fence around each one of these addresses based on the IP address. It gets even deeper. We talked about credit score, right? So
let's just back it up even 1 second.
Yeah.
You're saying 5 million mobile phones.
Yep. Available to target.
And between desktop and tablet, which, would be your computers,
your iPad, your Amazon
Kindle,
all
you're
that.
only 300, about 630,000.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that tell you, it tells me that I want to do mobile, make sure my website.
Yes.
Okay. Not to skip off topic a little bit, but my website needs to be available for a mobile app.
Yes.
Or
100%.
to view on mobile. And I never even realized that existed until you and I had spoken. But maybe we want to critique this to be mobile only.
Which you can do. Yes. You can only send it to the phones, mobile devices, etc. One thing I also want to mention too when we're talking about websites, handicap accessible, ADA accessible. That's a big thing now that makes Google happy. I know we really didn't talk about SEO versus SEM yet, but the idea of making sure Google's happy with your website, mobile friendly, yes, and ADA compliant. And if you talk to your website team, they'll be able to show you how to build out your website. So it's not so much it's listening. There's actual, you can play out the words. There's a whole system of ADA compliance on websites now that a lot of people forget about, and it makes Google happy. I hate to.
Okay. So basically, I mean, so what I've learned so far from you in the brief, 25 minutes we've been talking, is that if you're not staying up to date on your website, your AdWords, and constantly changing your AdWords, it sounds like, then
not changing,
monitoring,
limiting, growing, trying new keywords.
Okay.
So let me clarify with that. So it's not running 30 keywords and then different 30 keywords the next month. It's finding what keywords are driving the highest results for you. So I could care less about the highest impressions. What keywords are driving the highest conversions?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, okay, well, if it's driving 0 conversions after 3 months, let's maybe push those to the side and maybe try a little more unique of a keyword. So instead of stone, paver.
Yep.
That kind of
concrete
thing.
Paver,
concrete
something
paver,
like that.
very specific details.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then for the hardscape and masonry contractors, maybe they don't want to put veneer stone. Maybe they want to put, natural veneer stone or natural stone patios, if that's what they're into. Just be a little bit more specific rather than just patio.
And try it. That's the best part about it. You're not going to waste dollars if you optimize each month by narrowing in what your success is.
And to what you described earlier is, if nobody clicks on or searches for Tennessee sandstone patios and your market is New Jersey, then you're not paying for that.
No.
But if you put in the one word patio and 3 gazillion people are looking for it, then you're paying a higher number for that, correct?
Yes. And what's nice is, in working with a marketing company, and I'll preface this because I'm sure everyone on the call has heard this before. There's 3 really ways to run an SEM campaign, a search campaign. You can run it yourself. Just please don't just throw $500, hope it works, and kind of sit there and do it. A agency can come in and run 2 things. They'll run a spend number with you, and they'll run a retainer number with you. That's the second way. Most common for more marketing agencies when you're kind of talking retainer and spend.
Okay.
So there'd be $2,000 as a retainer every month, and then $2,000 or $3,000 for the spend on Google. They kind of separate it out. Some people like that because they know what they're paying each month, those kind of things. With Townsquare, we work off of a sliding scale, a sliding scale of actually the retainer process. So if the campaign is doing better, it goes a little higher. It's a larger area, more work to do. And if it still needs to be optimized, it goes a little lower. So why that's valuable, it never really goes over 20% at the end of the day of what the spend is.
Okay.
So it's competitive when you look at a full campaign and strategy. But the team is paid because we actually have an entire search buying team in-house. So they actually talk to Google every day, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
To have not just one person working on it, but an entire team on the back end actually looking at the campaign every day, optimizing, developing while you're actually running your business. Think of it like an accountant, right? You don't want to do your own taxes. You want to bring the accountant in who's literally just sits there all day and looks at tax papers.
Right.
Same thing applies here.
And let's face it, I mean, the contractors I deal with currently, they're very good in their business.
Yeah.
Okay. But they just don't know how to run a website, run a marketing campaign.
I don't know how. Well,
and nor do they have the time.
No. And like you should see my DoorDash bill. I don't know how to cook, but
good point.
Exactly. I'll give them a plug. But
you made a mention while you were talking about budget and things like that. So basically, we had talked about 10% of your net income possibly goes towards
marketing overall. Yes.
Okay. So that would be your SEM.
Your
SEO. Now, do you have to use SEM with SEO, or is it one or the other, or can I use both?
So I always like to say that I don't consider myself an SEO expert.
Which is what?
Search engine optimization.
Okay.
The reason I like to say that I'm not a SEO expert is because, frankly, it's funny to say, I wouldn't know how to do it.
Okay.
And there's a big reason for that. Digital marketing, and there's a funny joke in the marketing industry about, can you tell me the difference between SEO and SEM?
Just a letter.
At the end of the day, the optimization of your website and content and social and all that can be done 30 different ways. Blog posting, social posting. I'm going to get booed off of this if you have comments when I say Angie.
Okay.
Angie's another example of where you can do SEO and put your name out there. Yelp is another example of listings. Like if you're a part of a chamber of commerce, your listing on that page that links to your website is a part of SEO. All that being said, there's 30 different ways, like I said, to do SEO. Why I love SEM is I care more about the back end and the optimization, and I can track every single detail. It's almost like paying to be in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that SEO won't cost anything, because you can do blog posts on yourself. You can have, I work with plenty of SEO agencies, and I run their search campaigns while they do the SEO. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and it grows over time. That's really what SEO focuses on. Okay. It's the development to organically bring yourself higher on Google.
Any benefits to it other than you might be able to do it yourself?
Well, again, like we just spoke about, you don't want to do it yourself, right? Like,
well, nobody has the time.
They don't. Like even this podcast we're doing is a part of SEO because it's helping grow your brand. It's going to go on your website, those kind of elements, YouTube page, and link back to your website.
Right.
It shows Google that there's activity. I mentioned before about someone not posting on social since 2020. It's not going to benefit you whatsoever, because if you continually post on social, that's going to grow your SEO at the same time.
Understood.
Why search is valuable for me in SEM is because you're in the game. You're running. It's almost like a running start. Most people don't have large budgets to spend on SEM, but even if you're spending a little bit here and there and kind of building yourself up in the right areas, SEO usually is just a nice radius around your location. But for companies that want to do open in new locations, develop, you might only want to do LBI and I don't know, by Lake Hapag or whatever. I can't pronounce that right.
Lake Hapag.
Hapag, excuse me. Lake Hapag. I'm going to just say it normal so I can go back. If you only want to work on lake houses and beach houses, SEO is not really going to help you because those are two very different places. SEM is going to focus in on those zip codes. And even something like this where I can pull.
Well, I was going to say, we go back to that gentleman that moved from New Jersey to Florida, right?
Exactly. So if he has that element there, like here, I can actually do people who have investment properties. Click on that. It should be somewhere in here too where I can do multiple properties.
And this is how you can target your audience.
Exactly. So now there is your 840,000 addresses of people in New Jersey that also own an investment property.
Wow.
So we just went from almost 4 million to 800,000.
Okay. Now, can we take that one step further and
hit me?
Has a credit score of, 680 or better.
Let's go to work.
Because let's face it, contractors, and supply yards like ourselves, we always worry about getting paid. So, whoever reaches out to you from after talking or hearing you on this podcast, then they want to get paid from the contractor. So knowing the credit worthiness of their next potential project, and if they're already narrowing it down, knowing they have a good credit score or knowing they have a household income of, I don't know, $200,000.
Yep.
can save them a lot of time.
Yeah. So here I actually have the credit tiers, which is great to see, the highest credit score.
Mm-hmm.
We can do number as well, but I just found this one first. Welcome to Jersey, right? We went from 800,000 to about 200,000.
Okay. But that's good because now we know who to target.
Now we're very much narrowing ourselves down.
And we know they carry at least one phone.
Yeah.
And then sometimes two.
Well, yeah, if you do the math there's average about 2 to 3 phones per household.
Okay.
And why this is valuable too, I just want to clarify, this is something separate than search, but it gives me a good idea of who we're trying to find at the same time.
So basically,
with this platform, I can run display ads, streaming television ads, video ads, or even match some of this back to the email data and the actual social lead gen that I talked about before. All of that, because what we can do at the end of the day is track that first and last name and home address and match it back to your books at the end of the day.
So basically SEM, search engine marketing, is basically
a foundation.
Yes.
A foundation.
And now we just found out who we're going to target, and now we've got to come up with a plan, you and I, of how we're going to target them.
Exactly. And again, I know I'm showing the state right now, but easily we can do zip codes, metro area, congressional district if you're fine with the lines.
Yep.
And then state as well.
Okay.
So really, even if I just do postal code, and I know just 2 off the top of my head, 48 Middletown and 07732 Highlands. Let's just do the beach in Middletown. And I still have all this in here. There you go. So in Highlands, New Jersey and Middletown, New Jersey, Middletown has about 60,000 people. Highlands has about 5 at the end of 500 or so. We have 839 addresses that are investors that have the highest credit rating, credit scores.
So if I'm a new contractor
and you really want to focus in on just one small area, here's 2 zip codes right here that make perfect sense.
And you've got how many people?
Well, I'm trying to find my house. No.
You've got
900
people to target.
So let me clarify. It's 900 households.
Correct.
900 households. People come with the search and the actual campaign. I didn't mention this before, but really when you look at marketing, there's 3 tiers. And anyone who's listening to this should talk to their marketing team about where those tiers fall. It's awareness, interest, and conversion. Now, like a foundation, SEM and social lead gen is on conversion. That's at the bottom. Interest and consideration, interest is right here. This is people who, even if I take out my favorite sometimes, here is actually, you can do specifically movers. Life events. It's funny. It's recent empty nesters. If people want to put in their their new pool because their kid's finally done with college.
So this is something you would be doing for the contractors, right? If somebody
Yes.
signed up with you.
Yeah, we can do this during what's called any person should do a client needs analysis at the first step. That's what I did with you the first day I met you, is went into details on who. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a hardscaper. I'm not a landscaper. Have I worked with others? Yes. But you are going to have a very different plan and strategy than another contractor,
right?
Than another hardscaper, than another HVAC.
And you're going to have a different audience.
Exactly.
Different geographic region, possibly.
And these are great ways for us to really hone in on what's available. Now, that being said, if you have a showroom or a warehouse, there's another thing we can do here, and it's a part of the needs analysis, and we did this with Staffa Stone, is tracking, and I'm going to say AI again, but it was AI that did this. This company is called Placer AI, and we've invested in it to focus in on who the target audience is at the same time.
Okay.
This has been tracking mobile phones and mobile devices since 2017. If you have a phone right now, pull it out and check what location tracking is on your phone. Because as much as you might be stellar about saying no every time someone asks you, you still order your Starbucks coffee from the same Starbucks every morning, and your location is on at the Starbucks app.
So it knows you're somewhere close.
It knows you're somewhere close, and it follows from there. Why this is cool, and we can take a look. In the last 12 months, you've had 2,000 visitors to your location. Does that include employees? Yes, but we get a gauge. They've come to your location about 8,000, 7,500 times. They spend about 40 minutes at your showroom or in your field.
Right.
You're actually up 15% from last year. Now, we did talk about down from COVID because it's a flux.
Right.
What's been happening in the last 3 years.
And is that just different to the landscape supply business, or are you seeing a decline in everybody's?
We're seeing it in the auto industry. We're seeing it in retail is a big one. People are starting to come back, but they're doing more online. Mm-hmm. But what we've been noticing is becoming more the seasonal focus again, which if you go back 4 years, you had your ups and downs like we just talked about.
Right.
COVID was, I'm home, I want to get something done. I don't care what season it is. Sadly, in Jersey, unfortunately, the ground doesn't help us with that.
Right. Yeah, we care about the seasons for certain.
Yeah. Why this is cool is, I mean, what did you guys do in June and July? Because there's a huge skyrocket of visits. Didn't you have that fair?
We didn't do it this year in June. We actually did it in October.
Which you see a nice spike right there.
Right. Actually, that is when we did our open house, quite honestly, was the end of October.
Right there.
Yeah.
There's your spike. I'm sure this has a benefit to the beginning of the summer, projects, those kind of elements. Even the start of the season, right? With last April. Mm-hmm. Now, this is where it gets creepy stalker at, and it's my favorite thing to do. Here's where, and this goes back to targeting and where we should work on search. Here's your location right here. Excuse me, right here.
Yep.
People have come all the way from Brick to come down to your location. They come out from Whiting. If I zoom out a little more. They've come from Jackson, right up here.
Gotcha.
To Staffa Stone. And they come up and down here. Oh, they're coming all the way out here too. So why this is valuable is because there's areas that we can focus in on. Like, look, we have a big opportunity down here along 9 where some of your competitors are.
Right.
So we can start targeting there, and month over month, we can look at this data and see how it grows.
So this is all well and good because we have a brick and mortar.
Yes.
Now, how does that help the contractor, if at all?
With something like this, we want to focus more in on the actual showroom itself. But when we talk about a contractor, it's more into the keywords and the actual elements of the conversion.
So, right. Yeah. Understood.
Well, I will say from a contractor standpoint, you can always look at some of the household demographics.
Yeah, I think that for the contractor is the biggest thing. right? Knowing that this is available, number one, that's plain and simple. Number two is coming up with the campaign after we know our target audience.
Yes. Because I can make this map for anything at the same time, as long as it's a polygon shape around a location. I actually did it for an auto company, like a dealership. We just did their parking lot. Not even, like, they want to see who's roaming around the parking lot, not the showroom.
Okay.
So we were able to do something like that. So if there's developments or areas that they want to focus in on, we can gain this data from these platforms as well. So if they want to target like LBI or something along those lines, we can do that as well.
Right.
But yeah, I think overall, these kind of different campaigns, it still comes back to what the conversion is. And I will stress that till the end of this conversation. And it's really focusing in on, well, I could care less about impressions.
Yes, agreed. They don't put money in our pockets.
They don't. Clicks, as long as these clicks convert to a conversion, you have it set up with a form fill to learn more, phone call, all those different elements. The biggest thing I will mention, and you mentioned this before about the person who's working in the back end, make sure there's some sort of CRM system set up, a client retention management system.
That's correct.
CRM. Yeah. Okay. I knew I was saying it right. I always say the acronym. Client retention management. Why that's valuable. We want to know, as we're sending these people in, are they repeat customers? Are they new customers? How much money was spent? There's elements in the in-home services category with, it's more HVAC, but if you've heard of like Service Titan.
Okay. No, I have not.
Okay. But Service Titan will actually track everything that you do. We work directly with them in different elements, but you can actually follow the sale, the phone call that comes in, all those different elements. It works with anyone that has trucks that are going out on the road and those kind of elements.
Okay.
When you come to the contractor, I just care about, well, what did they ask for? And how much money is their project, or what are they trying to do, so that I can either call them back and make that sale, or my front desk team or sales team can make that sale. And what is the close rate? I always love meeting contractors and people who say, well, you're laughing already, because if I get them on the phone, I'm closing them. They're sold. And then 3 months later, well, I never called anyone. And
yeah. And, you know, as a supply yard,
you feel that as well.
We do. Yeah. And a lot of the contractors be like, hey, I need some leads. Okay. From the homeowners. Okay. You know, that's fine. And then I find out you didn't call that homeowner. So what we do at Staff of Stone is a very, very basic CRM for the homeowners walking through the door. So what you're doing, you come through my door, we ask for your name, address, phone number, email.
Great.
Why we do that? I want to hold on to that information. I'm going to walk around my showroom with you. Okay. And then, all right, I like this. The wife likes that. So we're going to jot them both down. We're going to give you a sample. Now you ask for a lead. I'm not just giving you one. I'm giving you 2 or 3, right? Because at the end of the day, you don't always know exactly what you want. Yeah. And we're also going to feel out your creativity. You know, are you going to give the contractor full run of your property? Some will, some won't. So we're going to try to navigate what contractor you're going to, you know, fit best with. So we'll give you 2 or 3 names, but I hold on to that information and I give you a copy of it. And what that does is, you know, when Kevin shows up to look at, you know, your house, then he already knows you're interested in this particular product or this particular product in a certain pattern, in a certain laying pattern.
It's almost that assist, right? Like if
the
basketball turn, it's like, I'm throwing you the assist, make the shot.
Right. And we have gotten back, oh, well, you know, that contractor you referred me to, he never called me back. And it gets quite frustrating because they're also the same people that sometimes say, I haven't gotten any leads from you, so I'm not buying product from you. Okay, I understand that. They're also the same guys that say, I've been doing it this way on the install for 15 or 20 years with great success. And now they say they have little to no work, or, they're not as busy as they'd like to be. And that's why we brought you on today, so for them to tune in and see things like this. This is available to you. You guys are the best installers around, but you need to take the time and look into SEM.
Yeah.
And we can do it with, I'm not going to say little to no money, but you've got to throw some dollars behind it.
And I think the best thing I can say in the actual budget conversation, because that's always at the end of the day what it comes down to, right? Like, I can stress the entire time we're in a meeting if you have an ideal budget range to work within.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone's not going to give me one, we can pull estimates at the same time. So I won't do one right now because it takes a little bit more time. But in real time, we can sit down with a potential client and partner of ours and see keyword categories. Again, they're just estimates, so they don't really focus on the conquesting and branding, which is a bread and butter of a lot of these GC architecture campaigns, those kind of elements. But it focuses more on the actual services overall and gives you a ballpark idea of what's available. That's going to be where we're looking at, because the starting point of a campaign, no one should ever do 100% of what's available. You're wasting your money,
right?
Because you're bidding against yourself at that point. If I run one of these estimates, basically we can look at it from a perspective of, if you're anywhere between 15 to 30% of your market, great. We have a good starting point. Why that's valuable is because now we can each month look at that and say, well, okay, we're going into a softer season, a shoulder season. I'm a marketing salesperson. I'll tell you, cut back your spend.
Right.
You don't have to spend this. Most marketing people will come into you and have one $5,000 for 7 months and hope it works. They'll try and pitch that, and I have, I'll be honest. But then at the same time, there has to be an understanding that, well, yeah, this is a fluid contract. Everything we're working on should come up and down and focus on a seasonal business. Every business is different, and that's one thing, especially in this industry, that needs to be focused on.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the seasonal part, because it just triggered something for me. So
I'm sorry.
So with the SEM, today we are lawn technicians. August, the grass burns out.
Yep.
We are, what would you call it? Maybe hardscape professionals. Okay. Now fall comes. We're cleaning leaves, and then we're plowing snow. So with the SEM, we can change our AdWords ever so slightly, right?
Based on the season.
Yeah, snow removal.
I compare it to a retail chain that I work with. They're in the Midwest. They basically every quarter, the keywords are changing up. That's because they're seasonal. They're like a Walmart.
Okay.
Spring is going to be very different than summer keywords because there's other things they can sell. Same thing applies here. I have a landscaping client that helps with koi ponds. Which, first off, anyone who's listening on this, have you ever worked with koi ponds, by the way? I know there's not real little stone, but
yeah, very little.
I have to tell you, those fish, they are expensive.
Oh, yeah. There's good money in ponds.
There is.
There is very good money in ponds.
I was just blown away the first time I started working with them, and I'm like, a koi fish is how much?
Yeah, can be big dollars.
And you know what? The reason I'm bringing it up is they actually wanted to use the terminology koi for their landscaping company because they wanted to focus in on that.
Right.
And look, at the end of the day, we saw that they had some impressions from it, some eyeballs, but there were no conversions coming from it. So by the third month, we're like, well, okay, let's put koi to the side. Let's focus on what actually is working. And they actually had a lot of stone keywords that were working well for them. Because landscaping and hardscaping definitely all play very well together.
Yeah, of course. Now let's switch gears just ever so slightly. And this may be something you don't handle, but everybody viewing is playing on their phones right now. And they have Instagram, they have TikTok, they have Facebook. which they can all advertise on.
Yep.
Why not? Or why should they?
So we talked a little bit before about social lead generation, which is Facebook, Instagram, Messenger app, your Meta suite, as it's called. That's going to be the best opportunity to reach anyone you're trying to reach, from the first homeowner.
You can't target it.
You can.
You can target it.
You can target it. So with social lead generation, like I said before, you can target that by really two different ways. One is by audience network. And actually, I can show you something in real time. Let's go to you. And anyone at home can do this in real time. So I'm going to go to your page. You can do this with your competitors. You can do this with anyone. So I can go to About, Page Transparency. I don't know if I've shown you this before, actually.
I don't think I've seen this.
So Page Transparency. I can go to See All. Scroll down. There it is. Go to Ad Library. Now what's going to come up is Meta's Business Manager. It's going to show me the sponsored ads that you're running currently. The video, well, these were launched in March. The video, and then the Contact Us one over here. Why this is valuable is because I can see everything that's going on. I can click through, see the ad, go to your amazing site. But one of the things I can do is target just by category as well. So why this is valuable is, on top of the targeting, this is going to be able to show me what my competitors or other individuals are doing that I can either copy or I can make better with the social targeting itself. So here's nice pictures of houses, video content. All of this is public information. And you can take this a step further and actually filter into different data sets that are on social. Basically, you mentioned TikTok.
Yep.
TikTok, we can do anything. TikTok kind of models this platform here. You can run anything on TikTok that you can run on social, which is cool. I'm 50-50 on it right now because TikTok is a high threshold to get in on for marketing. Like, there's minimums and stuff when it comes to TikTok itself. There's high thresholds to get in. It's there. I think a lot of the marketing for that is not as adequate for landscaping, hardscaping, other than the organic content. That's probably where SEO is going to provide the best quality. Doing TikTok videos about your creations, your work, your partner
maybe your
work.
creative design.
Exactly.
Right. So that makes you stay relevant.
Exactly. I'm just going to keep something else up. We can put the other screen up.
So there we go. So basically, you need to have TikTok. You need to have, Facebook, Instagram, but we're not advertising through it. We want to go the SEM route. Figure out who our audience is.
That's why I was trying to pull this up for you, because you can advertise through it. But if you're looking to target more of the residential or homeowner, so you would be better off on Facebook and Instagram because you can target that homeowner. The GC or the architect at the end of the day, or the home builder, they're much better off on search.
Right.
Full transparency. That's because you can do anything you need with those individuals on social. You can actually do the form fill directly through social. Them on Google is more keyword focused.
Understood.
The word social media, social at the end of the day. Like, they want to see a beautiful Staffa Stone backyard, fire pit, whatever it may be. The other side, when you're looking more for builders and actual like details, that's Google itself. Think of it from a consumer standpoint. If I'm looking at a beautiful backyard, all those different elements, I'm going to be doing that on TikTok, on Facebook, on not so much Snapchat. Pinterest is a great example. You have an ad manager on Pinterest. So if the wife is at home or someone really is looking at all these different things, Pinterest is another great example of a ability to be online and actually relevant creatively at the end of the day.
Then what is the next point just briefly describe, now I know where my target audience is and who they are. Do you do print ad? Do you do, how does your company handle the next step?
First step to any time I meet with someone is that needs analysis.
Yep.
We use all these data sources to find what we call the total addressable market. I know that sounds very salesy and see you smiling, so I'm going to just clarify. Total addressable market is using all these data tools that we have to create who's available. Why that's important is because now we have a good base on, if we didn't get a budget from the client, well, we can go out and target all 2 million people or 200,000 households, or we can take a percentage of the market. So if you want 25% of the total addressable market, the spend will be closer to this. If you want 30% or 50%, it's going to be closer to that.
Yep.
As I mentioned before, we don't want to take 100% of the market because then you start bidding against yourself.
Right.
So where do we fall where you're comfortable in a marketing budget level? Because that should be an easier conversation than it is. I know at the end of the day, I always laugh because how many people are, and I'm looking at a business owner right here, how many people are calling you, begging for your business, or trying to sell you stuff?
Quite often.
Quite often.
Quite often, believe it or not.
And it's stuff. It's like, I have the greatest X. I have this. I have that.
So we get a lot of companies like yourself
Yeah.
that want to sell me their marketing as well. And just because I've been fortunate enough to sit with you for the last 6 or 8 years.
We'll say 6. Well,
makes me younger. But I've been fortunate enough to learn just a little bit. I could never do this because I don't understand enough of it.
You see, I even struggle.
Right. And, I ask the simple questions that you should ask. And somebody will always say to me, basically like you presented earlier of, well, we can do a budget for $1,500 a month. Okay. For when? Oh, no, we'll run $1,500 per month for the rest of the year. And maybe that's another question I should ask you for you to tell the audience. If some of our viewers are in Georgia or South Carolina, number one, do you handle those areas if somebody calls you? Number two, is there a contract, so to speak, that when they sign up with Townsquare, are they locked in for a year? Okay.
Yeah, so I'll answer both of them. So first off, I have campaigns from California to New York. I worked on a Costa Rica ayahuasca resort. So if any of your contractors want to relax and chill, there's a place in.
My wife might.
Well, we were talking, you're going to get Arizona, so you'll just hop down to Costa Rica. Basically, anywhere in the world that's not North Korea, Russia, China, we can market in.
Okay.
I actually worked with a fertility company on doing things in Israel, where else was it? Germany and Italy.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of New Yorkers that they were looking to target that had places out there.
So you don't have any boundaries?
There's
very little.
Very little.
Very little.
Probably 3 countries at the end of the day that we don't want to touch for good reason. But regardless of that, when it comes to the contracts, a lot of companies will hold you into a contract and all that kind of element. We don't ask for contracts. We have a media plan that we put together. We ask for 30 days respectively if we can talk about it and have that conversation 30-day out. But besides that, everything about that first plan is probably going to change in the first 3 to 6 months. So it shouldn't be a fluid conversation. The media grid makes it easy and we can have a conversation about tactics and all those different elements. But we don't want to hold anyone to one specific plan and say, well, we hope it works.
Right.
That's why I mentioned a lot of the people that are calling you on a daily basis. I want to talk to everyone when they're at home and say, look, at the end of the day, if somebody, and I say that a lot, I apologize. I'm hearing myself say it as I'm doing these podcasts. Basically, if that person calls you, and by the way, I am 30, I still do this phone thing. When that person calls you, If you don't say, well, what is the benefit to me? How does my business grow? On that first call, this poor person is doing a cold call and they're sitting in an office somewhere and they're calling a list, or they've done a little research on your site and they're calling you. What is the return on my ad spend? If I'm doing this cool new platform app influencer campaign with you, okay, what's the return? If the business owner is not asking that, or the front desk is not asking that, they should never go to you. They should never get to the owner at the end of the day, because if there's no value proposition, really, if there's no value proposition, what is the benefit? I mentioned before about awareness, interest, conversion. It could hit one of those three. And if it's something you're interested, if you want to do the TikTok dances and be next to an influencer or whatever it may be, great. Do it. If you have the revenue to do that, have fun with it. That's still in the awareness piece. How is that falling down to your bottom line at the end of the day? And that's what a marketer should be asking you, especially today when I can show you 38 people called.
Right. And
you can listen to those 38 calls. I had a basement company that it was so funny. They don't do, it was something in Pennsylvania. It was a radon detection, I believe it was, something along those lines.
Okay.
We had 3 or 4 calls about radon detection for these basements, this basement company. And continuously, he's like, well, we don't do it. We don't do it. We don't do it. The next month, we had 7 calls. And they were specifically asking it. We didn't even have the keyword radon detection. He had to make that update so he can win this revenue. These were just people needing his services as soon as possible.
On radon, which he didn't even do.
Exactly.
But he changed his business model to do it, or?
He developed it and incorporated it into his system because there was such a need for it in his market.
Interesting.
That was the development at the same time. And if you're not learning something from your marketing team, what's the point of marketing?
Well, that's a very good point, because now the audience you thought you had is looking for something you don't even offer.
And that's, if it's fiscally responsible to do it, sure. It took him a few months to say, well, I have to hire a new guy. I have to do
of
this.
Course.
I have to do that. I'll clarify that, right? Like, we're not.
So there was a cash outlay for that gentleman.
We're not pushing at the end of the day to change your business model. Like,
understood.
I'm not a basement guy at the end of the day, and it might have been waterproofing, not.
But
just
it opened
radon,
his eyes,
yes.
Right? It opened his eyes to there's another market out there that I'm letting pass by.
Exactly.
So that's an interesting fact.
And especially in your industry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know from like the cabinets and tile and more interior stuff, there's a lot of European companies that are co-oping or working with you locally here, correct? Stone, maybe?
Some do, yeah.
There's definitely, with the German company that I work with here in the United States, there's a language barrier. There's a problem with what they call certain things and what we call certain things. So when they sent us their keyword list, we ran it the way they wanted to the first month, and noticed that a lot of the terminologies weren't getting any traction. It's because the terminology they thought they were using was successful in their German Google campaign. It wasn't successful in the United States.
Right.
I think one of the terminologies was puzzle parking. It was successful in Germany.
I don't think I've ever Googled it.
I would think puzzle parking, and again, I would think it's a game on my phone.
Okay.
Because like if you ever see those like random games where you have to move the car around to get it out. But we had to change it to a stacker parking was the actual terminology that the United States was using, and it showed a higher return after another month of running it. So it's those little tweaks at the same time that are so valuable.
And then you, as a marketing expert in your field, you're willing to meet with your customer after that 30 days. Let's say I run a 9-month campaign or so. Are you meeting every month, once a month, twice a month? I want to try to make the audience know what to expect, whether it's out of you or out of another team.
So you're going to get myself. we have a team on the back end, which will have an account executive, a creative director, which actually we didn't talk much about creative because creative plays into different roles. All of our creative is included in anything that we work on because creative is such a valuable asset at the end of the day. So you'll have a creative director on your team as well.
Okay.
So after the contract is set, the strategy is put together, the starting strategy, you'll have a launch meeting. The launch meeting will have that creative director, myself, the client, anyone else you need on that call from their side as well. That launch meeting will set the cadence of reporting, the cadence of having meetings, the cadence of even an online dashboard that'll show you in real time how the keywords are doing, how the performance is. So you can look. I want to preface, it's one of those elements of you don't want to stare at it 24/7 and hope it changes every 2 seconds.
Watching,
yeah.
Right.
You want to focus in on maybe every week, take a look at it if you can. If not, our job is to report to you different elements of the starting point of the campaign. But you want to give campaigns ramp time. I would not sell a campaign for less than 3 to 6 months because there's learnings, there's other elements that are involved. We didn't even talk today about something called local service ads, which are the ability to be even above the text keywords on Google. It's a new little box they've added in. It's called like Google Guarantee.
Okay.
If you've ever seen it, it's a way they don't even have to go to your website. Again, Google wants to win with Google.
Yep.
So you can pay to get a phone call right from Google as well. And that's another element available of the LSAs, they're called.
Okay.
So if someone's calling you and begging for LSAs and saying it's the next coolest thing in the world, it's still Google.
Right.
It's an element of Google, but it's still Google.
Okay. And your company handles that?
We do.
Gotcha. So then how does the viewing audience, how do they get in touch with you? Is it best to email you or how do they get one of the first initial meetings?
Yeah, I think I'm on most social platforms. LinkedIn, email is probably the best. But I always laugh at this because I love what I do. So work always, and same with you, right? Like when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That's correct.
I'm available, phone, Facebook, Instagram. Everything of mine is professional at the end of the day. As you're on my Facebook, so you see some of the professional stuff.
Yeah. So what we can do is, if anybody's interested in getting a hold of Kevin, then you can always email us at connect@staffastone.com and we'll forward your information onto them if that's okay.
Of course. Fantastic.
So again,
I'd love to set up one of those CNAs, the client needs analysis, because that's really that next step to see where you are today.
Right. Okay. So again, it'll be connect@staffastone.com and then we'll pass on Kevin's information to you. That pretty much concludes, unless Kevin, you have anything else?
No, I appreciate the time and everyone tuning in.
No, I know we jumped around a lot, so I apologize for asking questions that might have been very, very easy for you or elementary.
Well, don't even call it that at the same time, because I like this format because that's what a person that's going to probably reach that email, they don't know what to ask. And I've seen it all the time. It's an ego thing, right? At the end of the day, it's an ego thing. I don't want to ask a question I might not know the answer to.
Right.
So I appreciate you asking the questions and having that conversation, because at least the people at home will have a better understanding walking in. They come up to me and say, well, I remember you saw that social thing. Can you dive in a little deeper?
Right.
Yeah,
we only touched the tip of the iceberg today.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, I don't know if there's more services that you provide, but
I mean, everything from the websites to we do have an SEO team in-house. If you ever want to talk about SEO, I have very basic knowledge, but they actually are the experts on that side. But yeah, anything.
Full marketing company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and even
coast to coast.
Look, depending on where you're at, traditional broadcast is still a huge tool as well if you want to do radio ads and localized content on some of their websites and elements as well.
Okay. Again, thank you for tuning in. If you need to get a hold of Kevin, connect@staffastone.com. And I appreciate it very much. We look forward to you tuning in next week. I'm Kyle Staffa from the Hardscape Huddle. Thank you.